Welcome to the May 15th, 2014 City Council meeting, and would like to recognize Councilmember Scales Harris to introduce our prayer tonight.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. It is with great pride and honor that I present to you the best pastor this side of heaven, my pastor, Reverend James McCarroll, who will lead us in the prayer.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we gather this evening with grateful hearts, thankful for this blessed and beautiful day that you've given us. We thank you, Lord, for the leadership of our city. We thank you for every individual that you've appointed to govern the affairs of this fine community. Now we pray that your presence will be in our midst, that you would give wisdom and discernment in every decision, and that you would allow us, Lord, in all things, in every decision, to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the people that we're called to serve. It is in the name of Christ that we thank you for this time together, and we expect an awesome time that will be life-giving to this community and ultimately beneficial to every life that is a part of not only this community, but those that will be impacted by those in this community. It is in Jesus' name that we ask it all. Amen.
Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Before we get into the consent agenda, I would like to recognize Lenny Goodwin to be able to tell us about someone that's been real special to our city and tell us about a very special event that's coming up.
Thank you, Mayor McFarland. And if I could, I'd like to ask Terry Womack to join me at the podium. Terry's retiring. Terry has been with our department as Cultural Arts Coordinator for 28 years. During that time, Terry has worked with all ages, from toddlers to seniors. She has taught art classes, held concerts, camps, supervised community center, and the list goes on and on, doesn't it, Terry? But the most notable accomplishment in her career was her dedication to children's theater. 25 years ago, Terry started a children's theater group called the Sunshine Players. Since the creation of the Sunshine Players, hundreds of children have been a part of the program, and some have gone on to careers in music and theater. Probably one of the most notable is singer-songwriter Mr. Chris Young. Terry's last play, 101 Dalmatians, just concluded with over 100 children being part of the performance. Terry's last day with the city is July the 1st, and we will miss Terry's creativeness and her love for the arts, but most of all, we will miss Terry. Terry, would you like to say something to them?
Well, we only had 86. And
101 Dalmatians.
we tried for 101, but our youngest was 5 weeks old, only because they were the daughter of a former Sunshine player, and our oldest was 18, which we had to write permission for because they don't want anybody over 17 in their productions, but they gave us permission to have an 18-year-old. So we had lots of children and lots of second-generation children, which is, I guess, a testament to the program and the Recreation Department allowing us to continue, and we hope that the Sunshine Players will continue for years. Stephen is in the audience. His children participated in the program, and they're still very young, so we hope they will continue to do so till they're 18. So I thank you, and it's been a good run, and it's going to take me a U-Haul to get all my stuff. I'm going to have to rent a storage unit to put in my office and everything. But I've had a great time, and I've enjoyed doing things with the city, and it's really the only job you get paid to play, and so I've had... Okay, shh, don't tell them. Well, I worked at it, too. There were many days I worked just as hard as I played. I mean, you put on a theater program and you're dealing with lots of children and you have to build sets and you have to make costumes and you have to make props, or you have to go to antique stores and find things, or you have to go online and say, please pay for this because we can't make it for that. And so we've been very fortunate. We've had a good budget. We've been able to put on 6 plays a year with kids, and some we write ourselves and direct, and sometimes the kids direct. And so we've had a really good run. I hope Sunshine Players will continue when I'm gone, because there's lots of other children out there. I just got an email the other day and said, my son turned 6. He wants to join the choir. Can he start any time? Our choir ended. It'll start again in August. He said, and they said, and they want to be in a play. Auditions are in July, so you just missed everything. You just hang on, it'll come back around. So I get calls all the time. So hopefully, just because I'm leaving means the program will continue on. So thank you very much for everything. Thank you, Lenny.
Terry, thank you very much, and thank you for what you've done for all the children that you've impacted in our community, and what you've done for our Parks and Recreation Department. We'll move into the consent agenda. Is there anything that the council wants to, you've had a chance to review, is there anything that you want to remove from the consent agenda? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Harris, Mr. Gilly, call the roll. Ms.
Mr.
Wright?
Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. We'll move into the minutes for the April 24th meeting, the special meeting, the April 24th, 2014 regular meeting, and the May 1st, 2014 regular meeting.
Move for adoption of the minutes as presented. Second.
Mr. Gilly, Mr. Washington, call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. Move to third readings. Consider for passage on third and final reading ordinance 14001, changing the date of city elections to coincide with the date of the August general elections beginning in August 2016.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Smotherman and Mr. Washington, call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. Consider for passage on third and final reading ordinance 14019, amending Appendix C, City of Murfreesboro, Tennessee Employees Revised Pension Plan, Article 10 Pension Committee, Section 1001 Committee Members.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Gilly, Mr. Washington, call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. Consider for passage on third and final reading ordinance 14OZ14 to amend the Plan Unit Development District located along Franklin Highway, State Route 96, and to remove approximately 19 acres from the Plan Unit Development District and rezone it as Highway Commercial District.
Move for passage on third reading. Second.
Mr. Washington, Mr. LaLance, with your third second. Consider for passage on third and final. I'm sorry. Call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. Consider for passage on third and final reading ordinance 14OZ15 to rezone an area located along Mercury Boulevard to Highway Commercial District.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Gilly and Mr. Young, call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. Consider for passage on third and final reading ordinance 14OZ16 to rezone an area located south of Salem Highway, State Route 99, to residential multifamily 16 district.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Young and Mr. Gilly. Call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. Second readings. Consider for passage on second reading ordinance 14018 to adopt amendments for the McKnight Park redevelopment master plan of the city of Murfreesboro.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. LaLance, Ms. Gels Harris. Call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. We'll move into first readings and consider for passage on first reading ordinance 14026, amending Chapter 33, Water and Sewers, Section 33.1 of the Murfreesboro City Code, dealing with the minimum monthly water charges and minimum monthly sewer charges. Mr. Gore, good to see you.
Mayor McFarland, thank you for the opportunity. Council members, I wanted to go through our kind of a long-range planning associated with our rate design. Prior to our specifics that we'll be getting into in our budget in the next few weeks. What we've put together here is a rate analysis, metrics, and ultimately our FY14 ordinance recommendation. You have the PowerPoint as a PDF in your agenda. I think it's difficult sometimes to see it on the TV, so it's included if you want to follow along. It doesn't have the animation, but it has the basic framework. What we look at with rates are really, it's three elements. We have a cost of service study done. It's done biannually. That really sets up our revenue requirements by rate class. It avoids our cross-subsidization between the water and the sewer fund, and it helps us develop our rate designs. We look at the market conditions. That's meaning we look at our neighboring utilities to see if we are priced within what our neighbors have as water and sewer fees. And we look at affordability indexes, which looks at very low income inside of Murfreesboro to make sure that we are not exceeding a 4% very low income average household income. So we try to hit the middle of those. It's a balance between all three of those, but I think we do a pretty good job. I wanted to go through that with you today or tonight. First off, why are we asking for a rate increase? We did our cost of service for fiscal year 13. As part of that, we also maintain a record of the past 10 years of expenses. That allows us to project into a pro forma for fiscal year 18. The number on the far right, lower right-hand corner, $7.6 million, shows a deficit of a revenue difference or revenue deficit that we need to make up over the next 5 years. And that's from FY13, including the current year, all the way to FY18. So half of that is incurred by our $58 to $60 million worth of debt that we expect to incur with the plant expansion and so forth. The remaining half of that is basically due to cost of living adjustments associated with expenses. So that's really driving the rate design. That's a 5-year horizon, and so how do we levelize the rate design to match up with making up that deficit? So I'm trying to, these are some curves, and I don't want to get too wordy about what they mean, but you've got a small dashed line that shows the cost of service. You've got a larger dashed line that shows the pro forma, and the solid line is our proposed rate design for FY15. These numbers that come up, the 9,050 and the 3,245, what those mean is right now, or in FY13, we needed to sell 3,245 gallons of water per month to cover our costs. In FY18, we will have to sell at the current rate design, or proposed rate design, 9,050 gallons of water. What the FY15 rate design provides is if we sell 4,360 gallons of water per month, which is an average $26.55 per month, we will cover our costs. This is for water. That makes sense. We're looking at what we had to cover in FY13, what do we got to cover in FY18, and what our proposed rate design for this year has to cover. For sewer, similarly, in FY13 we had to sell 463 gallons of sewer to cover costs. It's projected in FY18 at the rate design that we currently have, we'd have to sell 5,900 gallons per month. What do we project for FY15? Well, 3,733 gallons per month of sewer will cover our revenue requirements. The combined bill, in essence, again, $28.81 on the low end, or last year, $68.73 for FY18. For FY15, it's 4,046 gallons combined for water and sewer. That's a $57.95 bill per month is what we would have to average to cover our expenses. Now, taking those curves, we've plotted out these purple dots. The purple dots effectively show what a one-person through a five-person family, a very low income, what they earn a year. And the purple dots represent that 4% of that income on a monthly basis, if that makes sense. So you can see that our cost of service, our pro forma for FY18, and our current rate design is underneath that affordability index. That's what the meaningful part of that affordability curve there. Now, when we get to the five-person, you can see we're right on top of it. This is a slide, it's going to move on. I suggest you watch this on the screen. What we do on our rate design is if we keep our fixed monthly cost, and we would say if we propose to increase our commodity rate, you would see a curve that would basically get steeper. And you can see that just means we would get outside of our affordability index. Let's say if we maintained the commodity rate and just raised the minimum. Well, again, that pushes us out of the affordability index. What we are striving for over time is to raise the minimum and flatten the commodity rate. That lines us up with our FY18 cover pro forma, and it keeps us within that affordability curve. So that's the big picture, is where we're trying to move towards our fees as we move forward. Stay within the affordability, lower commodity, raise the and basically the minimum monthly fee is to cover the fixed costs, and the commodity fee is to cover the variable or the production costs. This is how we stack up when you look at our neighbors. We're right in the middle of the pack. Enough said. This, the last table here that we're showing is basically what we're asking for in the current ordinance, that roughly 37,000 customers will be affected by 50 cents per month on their water and sewer bill. We are just asking to raise the minimum sewer portion of the bill by 50 cents a month. The 1-inch through 6-inch, the actual minimum monthly fee doesn't change, but we have an allowance that is covered by the minimum monthly fee. We are asking for that minimum allowance to be reduced by 25%. So in essence, they would be paying for more volume, more of the commodity rate. And so that's how their average bills would stack out over there on the far right column. You've got to understand 6-inch meters, we've got 13 customers. So that's the very large industry like General Mills, Yoplait, Heritage Dairies. Those are the type folks that have a 6-inch meter. So the recommendations in the ordinance are basically to ask that we raise the sewer rate, the minimum monthly charge for sewer, by 50 cents per month for 5/8-inch meters. The 5/8-inch meters are residential. The minimum monthly charges for meters greater than 5/8. The water and sewer rate remains the same, but the allowance is recommended to be reduced by 25%. This allows us to increase our revenue requirements to meet that FY18 pro forma that I just talked about at the beginning of the slideshow. So I'm available for questions if you have any, but that's the basics.
you have any questions for Mr. Gore?
Forgive me for being a rookie here, but why does the number of gallons have to go up so much in a 5-year period? I mean, why is it going from, let me get back to this page, 3,200 gallons to 9,000?
Well, if you see where the FY15 rate design intersects that FY18 pro forma, that's where we would, if let's say we had to meet our FY18 revenue requirements today. So that's what we would have to sell to meet what's projected for FY18 if we had those revenue requirements today. We are going to incrementally move where that volume will not have to be sold. We expect the volume to, as we increase the minimum fee over the next 4 years, that volume that we need to sell would go down.
Yeah, got it.
Mr. Gilley?
Darren, and I'm familiar with this because I served on your board for the years that I did. But
yes, sir.
And I know it's only 13 corporate type customers, but have you had a discussion with any of those entities? Because you're still talking about $3,600 a year, and if every one of their utilities go up $4,000 a year, that's
right.
Concern for the workforce, I think.
Well, we talked when we did this. We actually did this last year. We reduced that minimum by 20% last year, and we're on we're kind of in a year 2 of a 5-year schedule where we're taking that allowance down to 0. So this number you see before you today is anticipated to come over the next 3 years as well.
And that discussion's been had with them so that they can anticipate in their budgetary process.
Yes, sir. We always let folks know and try to get ahead, especially with our larger customers who we have a good working relationship with, to let them know that so they can budget for those expenses. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay. Do we have a motion?
Move for approval on first read.
Second.
Mr. Washington, Mr. Lance, Ms. Wright, if you'll call the roll.
Mr. Gilley?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Mr. Washington?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Gore. We'll move to new business. Consider for approval or renewal of a certificate of compliance for Evelyn J. Robinson and Frank L. Robinson at Murfreesboro Wine and Spirits, 3016 South Church Street.
Mayor, this is an existing location, and the state of Tennessee requires this certificate be renewed every 2 years. They have met our requirements to do that, and I recommend approval.
Okay.
Move for approval.
Second.
Mr. Gilley and Mr. Young, please call the roll.
Mr. Gilley?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Mr. Washington?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. We'll consider recommendations of the Planning Commission.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. During its regular meeting on December 4th of 2013 and on May 7th of 2014, the Planning Commission conducted public hearings on the following matters. After these public hearings, the Planning Commission discussed the applications and then took actions to recommend their approval. The first is a PUD amendment application for approximately 2 acres in the Indian Hills PUD to be used for a restaurant along South Church Street at Calumet Trace. The second is a PRD amendment and zoning application for approximately 1.14 acres along Old Las Casas Highway to be removed from the Stratford Hall PRD and to be zoned as a separate PRD. The third is a rezone application for approximately 0.54 acres at 44 or 448 East Burton Street to be rezoned from OGR to PCD, Planned Commercial Development. The fourth is a rezone application for approximately 16.77 acres to be rezoned from PRD to RM16 along St. Andrews Drive. The fifth is a rezone application for approximately 1.1 acres at 4107 Manson Pike to be rezoned from RS15 to Commercial Fringe. And the sixth item is a PRD amendment for Summersby subdivision along Elam Road to reduce the number of required side entry garages. The last 2 items, our city's legal department has asked that we hold until we get some additional correspondence, and we'll be back with those 2 items at a later date. These need to be scheduled for public hearings. That's the only action that you need to take tonight on these items.
Thank you, Mr. Aylock. Mr. Ives, what do you recommend?
We are proposing June 19.
All of those the same night? Those first
Yes, I believe these were not.
Oh, yes, these were
The
very
first one may
well.
take 3 or 4 hours.
These were very well participated in, particularly the first 2 items.
May I make a suggestion that we split those two, so we do one night and one the next
I think that's very-
meeting?
Both of those will enjoy a full house, I think.
What's our next available date, Mr. Ives?
We're going to have your budget readings this year on June 5th, June 12th, and June the 19th.
And to have plenty of time to get the advertising out and make sure that we comply with the notice requirements, we usually schedule these about a month out. To back it up to the June 12th might put us in a tight bind for that. The 19th gives us plenty of time to be sure we have plenty of notice.
Could we do one the 19th and one the 26th?
Certainly, I don't think that'll be a problem for any of our applicants. Questions whether council would be meeting again on the 26th. But
I think we can meet on the 26th. Sure. So, how would you, Mr. Aylott, how would you recommend splitting those up?
Well, being as the first item that would be involving Indian Hills has been pending the longest, we should take it first.
Okay. So we'll look at having Indian Hills, the PUD amendment on the 19th, and then the Stratford Hall on the 26th. And then the others that go along with that, do that on the 26th as well? Or do you think that the legal will have those situated?
Actually, all the others were relatively minor
Okay.
in terms of participation. There was
Just
not a lot
to
of
speed the process,
discussion.
Shane, I'd suggest we do all the others on the 19th.
Okay.
That way they can go ahead and proceed with whatever it is they're trying to do.
Okay. So what we'll do, Mr. Aylott, we'll do the Indian Hills on the 19th with all of the other ones as well, and then do Stratford Hall on the 26th, if that's okay with the council.
That works for us.
Okay. Mr. Wright, we don't need a motion for that, do we? We do.
To set a
Okay.
public hearing, we
Okay.
do.
All right. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Mr. Smotherman and Mr. Young, please call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye.
Also, during its regular meeting on May 7th of 2014, the Planning Commission conducted a public hearing to consider renaming a portion of a street in the Kimbrough Woods subdivision known as Community Circle to Jerry Anderson Drive. The request to rename the street originated with the Murfreesboro Fire and Rescue Department and Police Department after experiencing confusion in finding an address along the street because of apparent duplicate street naming. After the public hearing, the Planning Commission discussed the matter and then took action to rename the street. The matter comes to the City Council now for it to also take action. You do not need to schedule a public hearing, just simply a motion to approve would be sufficient. In case you're not familiar with Jerry Anderson was a former pro football player. He was in our community on a day when Stones River was flooding. He rescued 2 children from the floodwaters of the river, and then, he drowned in the effort after his heroic actions. We felt that this would be an opportunity to honor him as someone who has performed a heroic act in our community. I get many requests to name a street in his honor, and this is an opportunity I thought that was appropriate.
Council members, do we have any discussion?
Move for approval.
Second.
All right, Mr. Young, Mr. Washington, please call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aylott. Mr. Ives, I think you're going to handle the next item.
I am. Mayor, members of council, I'm presenting this for Chief Chrisman and the Police Department. It's a request to approve the application for and entering into a grant agreement with the Justice Department. This is a grant that the city and county do jointly. There's a total amount of about $67,000 available. The funds would be split equally between the Sheriff's Department and the Police Department. The city in the past has acted as basically the agent for it and handled the application, and we're proposing to do that again. Sergeant Kyle Evans would be the person initiating the application, and this is for purchase of equipment that the department has selected a pickup truck to use for the DARE program. And we request, again, this is something that has been done in very similar fashion in prior years, and we request your authorization and approval to move forward with the application and the interlocal agreement between Police Department, City, and the Sheriff's Department. Be happy to try to answer any questions.
It's the only motion you need, David, is to adopt the resolution, and the item A is introductory in nature. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So we'll consider for adoption Resolution 14R12 approving application for fiscal year 2014 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant JAG Program Award for 2013 to 2017, designating the representative for such grant and approving entity into an interlocal agreement between Rutherford County and the City of Murfreesboro, Tennessee for the fiscal year 2014 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Grant Program Award in the amount of $67,090.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Gilly, Mr. Young. Ms. Wright, will you call the roll?
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gales Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. We'll now consider recommendations of the Assistant Human Resource Director with regards to the City of Murfreesboro employee benefits.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This evening, I'll be requesting that City Council approve recommendations regarding city employee benefits. The city requested competitive seal proposals for a 3-year term for health benefits and associated services, dental PPO, dental HMO, employee assistance program, and the Section 125 administration plan, or the flexible spending account. The city also requested invitations to bid for stop-loss insurance and for life and disability insurance. Our new benefit consultants, Cowan Benefit Services, who's with us tonight, the city manager, and the HR project team conducted an analysis of each RFCSP received. We looked at several areas, including cost, network discounts, and network disruption. A point value was given for each RFCSP. Based on those evaluations, the following recommendations are made for your consideration. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee as the city's health insurance carrier with Envision as the pharmacy benefit manager, Delta Dental Insurance and Assurant Dental as the dental providers, Life Services EAP as the city's EAP provider, and WageWorks for the city's flexible spending account. I'd like to talk a bit about the selection process. We received 10 proposals for health benefits and associated services. After a review of each proposal, the city conducted finalist interviews with 4 providers. Based on our overall evaluation, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee is being recommended to replace our current TPA and network provider, which is HealthScope and Cigna Great West. Envision RX, who is our current pharmacy benefit manager, is being recommended as our PBM of choice. This is based on their unique ability to offer transparency of pharmacy claims. This transparency was validated by a recent analysis conducted using city pharmacy benefit claims. We received 8 proposals for dental insurance. Delta Dental of Tennessee, who is our current carrier, is being recommended as the city's PPO dental provider. This is primarily due to their dual network option, which other providers don't offer. We're also recommending Assurant Employee Benefits, who is the city's current HMO dental provider. Assurant offers a prepaid dental option with no plan maximums, deductibles, or coinsurance, and deeper discounts than your typical PPO provider. 8 proposals were received for the Employee Assistance Program benefits. Life Services EAP is our current provider and is being recommended to continue EAP services. Life Services provides a local office for city employees and their family members. They also offer up to 6 counseling sessions per episode per person per plan year. We received 9 proposals for the Section 125 plan administration. After reviewing all the proposals, 2 finalist interviews were conducted, And based on those presentations, online tools, and the level of proposed customer service, WageWorks is being recommended as the city's new Section 125 provider. We received 8 stop-loss invitations to bid. Blue Cross RE was identified as the lowest bidder with a composite rate of $38.96. Therefore, we're recommending that the city approve them as the stop-loss carrier effective July 1, 2014. It's further recommended that the city select the alternate stop-loss coverage option of $150,000 specific and $200,000 aggregating specific. We currently have a $125 and $150. 6 firms bid on the employer-paid group life and AD&D insurance to include rates for optional employee volunteer life AD&D. The same 6 firms bid on employer-paid group long-term disability insurance. Minnesota Life Insurance, which is our current city's provider, was the lowest bidder with a combination life, accidental death, and dismemberment insurance rate of 12 cents per $1,000 worth of coverage. Cigna Insurance offered the lowest bid for long-term disability at a rate of 0.398 cents per $100 worth of coverage. And I believe your copy says $1,000, but it should actually be $100. Therefore, both are being recommended for providers. I want to talk a little bit about wellness. You will recall the city funded comprehensive wellness exams for all employees and their spouses who chose to participate last year. Employees were told if they repeat the on-site evaluations and reach their personal health goal, they would receive a premium reduction for the 2015 plan year. 535 employees participated in the exam, 206 spouses also participated. And it's anticipated that 80% of the employees will reach their health goal. It's being recommended that council approve an agreement with Interactive Health to continue to provide the city with comprehensive wellness exams this year. In addition, we recommend providing employees who reach their personal health goal based on the exam to have their premiums reduced by $500 annually, which is about $41.66 a month. If the above recommendations are approved by council, the financial impact for the city's health benefit cost for fiscal year 2015 is expected to be approximately $15,500,000. This is about an 8.5% increase over last year and significantly less than the predicted 16% increase that was initially forecasted. The smaller than expected rate increase is due to several factors. One would be better network discounts. Another would be the lower stop-loss rate. And the health benefit budget also includes health care reform fees that the city is required to pay. The city manager has recommended premiums for 2015. A 10.9% increase is being recommended for employees in the PPO plan. No rate increase change is being recommended for employees in the HRA, post-Medicare retiree PPO, and Medicare supplemental HRA plan. And that's basically because the employees in the HRA plan are having claims running about 30% lower than those people in the PPO plan. Same as the post-Medicare PPO plan. Their claims have been running lower for the past couple years, and so they've had a rate pass actually for the last 2 years. One of the things that we plan to do during open enrollment this year is to educate employees about the HRA plan so that we hope to drive participation to that plan. While health insurance is recommended to move to Blue Cross Blue Shield, there are many providers we are recommending no change: the pharmacy PBM, the dental, the EAP, and the life insurance. The change to WageWorks for FSA will result in an easier process for employees to be reimbursed. In addition, the HRA will not see a premium increase, neither will the post-Medicare retirees. The competitive process has resulted in approximately $800,000 in savings compared to our current provider. Therefore, it's recommended that City Council approve the selections as stated. The city and its consultants are still finalizing contract details with providers. Therefore, it is further recommended that Council authorize Mayor McFarland to execute all necessary contracts once Human Resources, the City Attorney, and City Manager have reviewed and approved the same. A complete list of all proposers and bidders are available in the Human Resources Department. Thank you for your consideration for these recommendations, and please feel free to ask me any questions if you have.
Thank you very much. Council members, do you have any questions?
The average, I'm sorry, the average insurance premium will go up at about 10%
For the PPO
PPO.
plan, 10.9.
into that. The HAA,
The HRA will stay the HRA will stay the same. It won't go up at all. And then the post-65 Medicare plan will stay, those rates will stay the same as well.
What's the ratio of the PPO versus the HRA?
There is about, I think it's an 83%. Let me just double check.
No, I meant of the population of the employees.
That are in the
Is that what you're
in the
saying?
PPO
Okay.
versus
Yes,
the HRA. There's, let's see, approximately 83% of the employees are in the PPO plan.
And I think there's something that we may want to look at, and Mr. Crumley, or ask you or Pam, that can you give us the breakdown of claims that were filed this year, and how that's broken down into above, medium, and below, as far as in dollars spent?
Oh, okay. So I don't have those numbers specifically here, but typically you have about 20% of your people trending with most of the claims cost, and 80% of your people are typically healthy. But everyone has to share in all of those benefits, and that's why we're saying that we want to educate employees to move to the HRA plan, because I think that it would be a cost savings for them, because many of those people that are currently in the PPO plan don't have the claims, and so they could have a savings if they were to move into the HRA plan. I just think it's more about educating employees on the plan, because it's relatively new. We just started that plan, I think it was a year or two ago. Yeah, 2 years.
Would you mind giving the council members a refresh, on the deductible on the HRA, and maybe give that in relation to families, if you'll give the deductible with the HRA and then the PPO at the same time?
Sure. So for the PPO, first of all, both plans are identical in terms of plan design. So doctor's visits, everything is absolutely the same. For the PPO plan, the individual out of deductible is $500, and for the HRA plan, it's $1,500. The deductible for a family PPO is $1,000, and the deductible for a family in the HRA is $3,000. However, in the HRA plan, the city gives the employee in the individual plan $750 toward that deductible, and they give the family in the HR plan $1,500 toward that $3,000 deductible.
Can I ask something? So that's where the city gives them more than the actual deductible would be? 750 versus 500, is that what you said?
The HRA has a 1,500 deductible for individual and 3,000 for the family.
Oh, that's PPO.
So the individual will get 750.
Gotcha. I wrote it down funny. Yeah.
The reason I'm asking these questions, I think if we look, we had 20% of our population last year that did not file a claim. And so what we have to be able, in looking at this, if we look at our HRA plan, in talking to employees, we've talked about we didn't cost save, we cost shifted. And it wasn't that we necessarily intentionally cost shifted, we just went where we had a true deductible. So something I'd like to see, if it's possible, to have Cowan research, is if there's a way, say for instance you have a family that has a $6,000 deductible in the HRA, and we contribute $1,500 the first year to do that. I think the issue that we have, there's that $4,500 difference, that if something catastrophic happened. So if we look and we say, though, to the employee that you're saving $103 a month by going with the HRA, you can save roughly $1,200 by going on your premium to the HRA. So that means that number's $3,300 that you could be out of pocket. I think that if we can look to maybe stepping up our funding to, instead of just doing $1,500 the first year, give more of an incentive to our employees to go to that HRA, that would ease some of their their fears to getting to that plan that will save them money on their deductibles.
We'd be glad to look at that, Mayor. In fact, one of the things we want to do this year is really encourage people to participate in the flexible spending account.
Correct.
Where in that situation they can shelter those dollars pre-tax. One of the Ms. Russell's recommendations is to move to WageWorks. And I sat in on the interviews, and the difference in ease to the employee to get reimbursed when they file claims using the flexible spending account is absolutely noticeable. I think the employees are really going to see a lot more convenience with WageWorks and getting that flexible spending reimbursed more quickly and more easily. And so we do plan a big education push when we get ready to open enrollment to help people understand the difference. And one of the things that is also available in the HRA is that if you don't touch the city's contribution towards your HRA, you get to carry it, I believe, up to 4 years.
You get to carry it up into your maximum, so you can keep that money until you reach your maximum out of pocket, the $3,000 or the $6,000. So those employees that don't have claims, that money rolls over, and even if something catastrophic does happen later on, they've already got the money in the HRA for that expense.
And I think looking at the numbers, if we had 20% who didn't file a claim, then we had another 68, 69% that didn't reach their deductible in the PPO, that I think if we were able to find a way that we can increase that amount into the HRA, we're going to have more participation, which in turn puts more money back into our employees' pockets for the majority that are below that $1,000 threshold. And that's, instead of the cost shifting part, we can help save income that they can get on their paycheck. Ms. Harris.
Am I not correct in saying that that the actual plan design is set by the city administration? Is that not correct? Such as your deductible, co-insurance, and out-of-pocket?
It is.
So therefore, in coinciding with what Mayor McFarland is saying, and I think the other council members feel possibly, is that since you all set the actual plan design, can you go back and look at the co-insurance, the out-of-pocket, and the deductible? Since you all actually set it, and you've set it to this, because you're looking at going from $250 deductible under the old. See, I think the employees may get a little confused when they hear we're going possibly to Blue Cross Blue Shield, because it's not to their advantage as far as yay getting excited, because when we had Blue Cross Blue Shield before, we had $250 deductible, then we went up to $500, then we had to $1,250 out of pocket, then you went to $3,000. All of these rates are set by our city administration, the actual plan. So I would like to see you all go back and look at your actual plan design, since you do design that. And I think that'll do a lot of easement on the new plan you're talking about. Now, the Blue Cross Blue Shield, an advantage is, in reading all of this, your doctors, you'll have more doctors in your network.
Yes, ma'am.
And you're cutting the middleman out, which before was Cigna. And this time we don't have a middleman. We're going straight to Blue Cross Blue Shield to do all the administration. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. We had HealthScope as our third-party administrator.
Right.
And
so we're cutting out the middleman now.
Through Cigna. And so Blue Cross Blue Shield will do everything.
Right. Okay, so that's what I would kind of like to see you all, since you all do set the actual plan, to go back and look at that, your parameters again. And I think that'll help a lot.
We can certainly look at the plan. Ms. Gales is right. Years ago, we had a $250 deductible for the Blue Cross Blue Shield. We also had a 80-20 split for the employee-employer. But every year when we looked at our plan cost, employees really shared in about 10% of that cost. And it was really due to some of the plan designs that we had. So we can go back and take a look at the plan design to see what would work best to get people into the HRA, what will work best for both plans, the PPO and the HRA.
And after that 10%, see, it paid 100%. That's why I really want you all to go back and look at your actual plan design and reconstruct that, because, you're still talking about the ones that are really going to get hurt are your PPO people. And those are the ones that's going to really feel the brunt of this change. So I would like to see you all go back and redesign your design.
Mr. Hines?
Yeah, one of the things that, is when we started down this road several years ago, when we began to take a look at our health insurance, this is a very large piece to our budget. And when we looked at our benefits compared to our peers, we want to continue to provide great care to our employees. They're valued. This is an important benefit to them. But what we saw was that our costs for our plan really were a good bit higher than what we saw in the other communities and other local governments. And trying to figure out how do we keep that cost line, Mr. Gore had one earlier that was rising very rapidly. How did we try to arrest that rapid rate of growth, given all the changes in health care and cost of health care going up? How do we arrest that line yet still provide a great benefit? And so we did have to take a look at some of those plan design issues, and those were some difficult choices. We've had a number of meetings with the City Council over the past couple of years on this issue, and that has a direct bearing on the rates that are being proposed here. So if we changed the deductible or lowered it, the numbers that are before you here are absolutely going to go up. Right now we're looking at a $15 million spend in health insurance this year. So we've tried to balance the two, providing a great benefit, but at the same time realizing that this has become a bigger and bigger piece to our budget. There's a good number of our city departments that aren't $15 million. So this is a significant part to your budget. And so we're trying to find that middle ground where we can continue to meet both of those goals. When you look on the PPO, Ms. Russell put in her packet what the average increase was going to be for employees, and I think it ranges from about $11 to just under $36 per month. So while that's going to be felt by some folks, we were trying to keep that amount being somewhat manageable.
The other thing is that we've got half of our employees that did participate in the wellness program, and so if they meet their goal and they get the reduction of $41.66 a month, it offsets that cost, so no one would have a reduction, and in fact, all people would have a lower rate.
And that's really what we want to get a lot more participation is in our wellness program, because as Ms. Russell's right, if you meet your health goal, you'll save $41 per month in your health insurance cost, and that would offset every single one of those increases that I just mentioned.
So the $500 discount is new for this year?
Yes.
And it's only if you hit your health goal, not just for is there anything for just participating at all?
The last 2 years we gave for just participation. The first year we gave $250 for if you and your spouse participated, and then I think it was half that if you participated on your own. Last year we gave $125 for any employee that participated. All of that was on an FSA card. So that was for doing nothing. So last year we said, okay, this is the last time we just give the money away, but when you get your goal, because the ideal is that they practice consumerism and they get healthier. That way the cost of the insurance goes down as a whole, and then even if we have the 80-20 split, we don't have as much to fund. And so the ideal was to get healthy and stay healthy.
Is there? Yeah, I understand that. Is there some value, though, to us just by having the data and being able to see what our trends look like and what our exposure would look like, and is that worth trying to have some number there? I mean,
this might be a good opportunity for Cowan to talk to you all a little bit about that, because I know they dug deep into all this, and we've got a representative from Cowan here to maybe speak to your question.
And while you're still up there, let me ask you this, just about the same thing. The 535 employees, what percentage of what number of employees participate in our health insurance?
Probably about, I think it's, right now I think we're saying 1041, but that includes everybody, including the retirees. It's more like, let's see.
Do the retirees take part in that?
They had the option
wellness?
To participate, okay. But we didn't have very much participation.
We don't incentivize them, do we?
We don't incentivize them, no. Okay. We have 757 active, so 8, probably about a little over 900 employees. So we had over half that participated.
I will say there was incentive for the retirees in that they had a blood draw paid for, that if they'd gone to the doctor to have it done, they would have had to pay for
Right,
it.
okay.
So they could take the results to the doctor, just like I did, and not have to have another blood draw done.
Yeah, good, okay.
And so I think the employees saw the benefit because they had 206 of their spouses come in, and they didn't get a benefit for that this year. But they understood that if they had gone to the doctor themselves, they would have had to pay for that exam. Yes, ma'am?
I know through Health Scope, they gave us a discount. Blue Cross Blue Shield is also giving us a discount, right?
Correct.
I was just going to, before Cowan speaks to the council, Mayor and City Council, just to remind the council the three targets that we have impressed upon all employees in the last 3 years, and that's cost control, consumerism, and wellness. And so I think anybody who hasn't heard that message in the last 3 years really hasn't been paying a lot of attention. That's why I think that there are very few renewal messages like ours. Again, if you're paying attention, if you're participating in the HRA, the FSA, and wellness, you're going to be saving money this year. And there's a huge opportunity for, as Pam mentioned, almost 600 employees to do just that. So I don't think many bodies of this size have that sort of an opportunity. But I will say this. 3 years ago, we didn't have the same consulting firm. And we feel very confident that Cowan has the ability to further review and almost to a granular level understand those networks. Because frankly, this is really what we were after this year, as Ms. Russell pointed out in the RFCSP process, trying to understand how we can further drive costs out of the network. And we think that we have that in front of you tonight with this proposal. I'll turn it over to Cowan.
Thanks for letting us be here tonight, and I'll kind of reiterate. I think the point of the wellness overall is to you keep the healthy and the sick from getting sicker, right? So that's the underlying goal. So what we've done is historically the spread between the PPO rates and the HRA rates, there was not a lot of difference, 5 to 6%, right? So if you're an employee looking to sign up, you don't see much of a savings to take the HRA. As we look at it tonight, if you increase the PPO by 10.9%, you keep the HRA at a rate pass, that encourages two things. One is it keeps the people that are in the HRA, keeps it in there, they're going to stay in the plan. And the goal is to get, we don't really have a number in mind, but the goal is to get some migration of people who look and now say, I'm in the PPO, I didn't have a claim last year, or I had a couple of minor office visits, I want to go to the HRA, I can save premium. And again, at the end of the day, it's to get people in this consumerism attitude.
So specifically to the question, is there some value to having people show up even if they don't meet their goals, where we might make sense for us to incentivize them just to show up, just by us having the data?
Absolutely. So, you can use that data, and we could give that to disease management vendors, right? And they can do outreach calls. I would submit that of the people that show up, some of those people, that may be the only doctor they go to throughout the year. They may not know they have high cholesterol. They may not know they have a high BMI, right? So the incentive, sometimes it's a soft cost, but if one person goes and their glucose is high and they realize maybe I'm pre-diabetic and it saves a $100,000 diabetic claim later on, that's the incentive there. So it's hard to quantify a day of service, but you never know what they may catch, and you never know how you can use that in the future. It's always better to have the data than not to have the data, for sure.
And when we talk about the wellness goals, tell us, for the employees that may be watching, what those wellness goals are that we're expecting them to meet under this system.
On our plan, Interactive Health is set up, they gave each employee that participated a score. And so that's an individual score. We don't know what their score is. But on that score that they received, it told them what range they were in and where they needed to be next year this time. So I can't tell you all the ranges, but I can tell you -20 to 0 was a range that you were healthy in. And so the goal for next year was to stay in that range. And so as long as you stay in that range, it didn't matter if you were at -20, the healthiest, or got to 0, you would still get the incentive because you were in the range. And that's how every category was. And so even those people that may not have been very healthy, instead of giving them a range, they gave them a percentage to say, you need to get, 20% better. And so it was all based on where they were at in their health. Now, there were some people that had doctor restrictions, had personal things that there was no way that they could get healthier. And in those conditions, they had a process by which they had a doctor's note sent to IHS doctor so that it wouldn't discard them from getting the benefit. And then I think someone asked earlier about, is there a benefit to just take the test? I think the data is important because one of the things that the overall report showed us is that there are people that are, for example, known by diabetics, but admittedly said they're not taking their medication. So we know that our health claims are rising, and we know that something has to be done about it. And so that's why we're trying to promote the wellness. There are also, we've done a blood draw 2 times, and in both instances, there were a number of people that they had to call immediately that night because their results were in such a critical high range that they needed to get to the doctor immediately. So there is value in that data and in people doing the draw, even if they don't make their goals.
Pam, under this model, since we're saying they get the $500 reduction if they meet their goals, so under this model, then how does that work? Since it's a year-to-year thing, do they pay the additional premium every month, and at the end of the year we check to see if they've met their goal, then they get some sort of a rebate, or how are we doing that?
This will come, we haven't figured out how we're going to put it on their check, but that monthly, it may just come right out of their premium. Since they've already done the first blood draw, when we get the results this year, we'll get from IHS a report that says, Pam Russell receives deduction. And so then for the premiums this year, I'll have that $41.66 taken off of my medical premiums.
Sure, but I'm talking about, like, say the employees that just sign up for it and do it this
Then
year.
they'll wait until next year. So the employees that said, hey, I'm not going to do it last year, they said, nah, I just don't want to do it. I don't care about the premium reduction, and they decided not to. They can still do it this year. They won't get anything. But next year, we'll look at the results from where they got them. It'll be based on this year's goal.
So that class of employees they're going to feel the pinch this year, whereas in the past they haven't over that.
They will, but I'll say this. We did so much education. We sent out brochures. We did a video. We had a wellness committee. We went out. So everybody knew about the exams. We promoted it. And so, the people that did not take it, it wasn't because they didn't know about it or they didn't have time. We did it during, work hours. We had schedules. So we all but brought them here. But some just said, I'm not going to do it, and I don't care about the discount. So it's hard to reward one without saying that there's a consequence or a penalty for the other.
We wanted to be very clear because in this particular situation, the amount of the $500, when you divide that out per month, it exceeds what the 10% increase would be. So they're actually going to, even with the proposed rates, their insurance cost actually going to be less if they receive the $500 for meeting their goal.
What about like a first-year employee who might have come in after you did your last screening? I mean, they're going to have to be paying up, right?
They just have to pay the regular rate. And part of that is because when we do look at the group data, and that's what's really important to see the trends year over year, we have to have a space and time, and we have to look at people over a specific period of time. There has to be a base, and so. Yes, ma'am.
But even with the new plan, it's still going to be more out of pocket for everybody, though, right?
No, if they are in the PPO plan and they do the wellness and they receive the $41.66 a month, they wouldn't pay any more for their premiums than they are right now because the biggest premium increase was $36 and something a month, and so that $44 is going to offset it. So everybody's going to be at a lower rate. Just depending on what plan you're in, you'll be even lower than more people. But everybody will have a lower rate.
I think what I'm hearing is to look at what that benefit is from the council members, from what the benefit is for the people who have not taken the test before, where it's a first-year employee or even someone that we want to encourage to come back and take that blood draw to hopefully get on our wellness program, to maybe look to see what that benefit would be to the employee. But the other thing, if we can look at, if our goal is to hopefully increase the numbers on the HRA, because that's where we can get our employees to save money, I do think the risk factor is that's what's keeping people from getting on that plan. If you're, depending upon which step you are in our pay increase, if you're a first-year employee, police officer that comes on making $33,000 a year, and you look at that you've got a $1,500 benefit or $1,500 deductible, that would scare me when we're only contributing in $750. That would be what I would say a life-altering experience on trying to figure how to come up with that money. If there's a way that we can look at graduating what we are contributing, $1,500 over the 5 years to get to $6,000, if we can look at a way that we can incentivize people to go on to that HRA plan quicker, to lessen if they did have a major event, I think that we would have less problems with employees going to that. So if we could look at that. But what do we need a motion for tonight? Is it the stop loss that we need a motion for tonight?
Right now, we're just, tonight, I'm recommending approval for the carriers that we selected because their contracts are over, and not plan design.
Okay. So right now, Council, we're just looking at going through, we went through the competitive bid process, and these are the people who have provided the best services from our, in the opinions of our consultants and staff.
This is just picking our TPAs, not setting in stone the plan design and rates for next year as of yet. Or are we?
Well, let's say that the budget that you received tonight, those rates have been built into that budget.
Okay.
So if that's something you want to change, that would be something you would change after the public hearings, after the department
During the
presentations.
budgetary process, not tonight.
Not tonight.
Okay.
They're built into that budget. So that all those changes would have to be made after the public hearing.
Okay.
If we can get some more information back at our next meeting or even during the budget hearings, because we're going to have lots of time to talk about health care of maybe different ways, I think that would be great. And other than that, we'll need a motion to approve our recommendations of our consultants.
Mayor, we can do one motion for all of the recommended contracts if council all agrees on all of these providers. If there's any want to be some separate discussion about maybe not approving one or more of them, then we'd need to have separate motions. But probably we can have one motion to approve all of the contracts. We will need a separate motion on the rates, on the the recommended rates.
Well, we're going to look at the rates again.
Premiums is actually, but
we're going to look at those again. We're going to look at
We will be looking at the premiums again during the budget process, correct?
Right.
We have the contracts with the various vendors is what we're looking to approve. They're actually still the finer points are still being negotiated with the vendor and the city. And so we're asking that the council authorize the mayor to sign those contracts once we finish up the finer points. The rates, if you all make changes, we can come back and amend that during the budget process.
Right, because what I'm hearing, we're talking a lot about the premiums, but I think a lot of the employees, they're talking about the premiums, but they are concerned about the deductible and the co-insurance. That's what they're really concerned about also, so we can look at that during the budget process. Because I think we do need to look at that.
And what I'd ask, because I want to make sure that we're being responsive. If maybe after next week, if you all would give me a call if you've got some specific questions or comments, I'd like to take those, share those with HR and Cowan, and we'll try to get some information to you.
And I think where Mr. Lyons is coming from, it's better to give them that information on the front end than us to be at a budget hearing and try to get a calculator out and make adjustments. So if you'll do that throughout the next couple of weeks, that'd be great. All right. You have the recommendation in front of you.
I'll make a motion to move forward with the contracts.
With looking at an adjustment in the rates. Right. I mean, that's what you're saying.
We're just approving the vendors.
Right. Right. I just want to make sure.
Is that, you got a motion?
Yeah.
Right, motion. All right. Mr. Washington, Vice Mayor Young. Ms. Wright, you'll call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Scales Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. Ms. Russell, thank you. And
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll next consider recommendations of the city manager with regards to dates for the 2014-2015 budget review and public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of City Council, today is May 15th, which means that is the day the city manager gives you your budget, which we have done so, and we would like to set the dates for the budget review sessions. The dates that we are suggesting are Monday, June 2nd, Tuesday, June 3rd, and Thursday, June 5th, if we need to review the budgets. It'll be the same format that we've used in the past, if that works for you, where we'll hear from the outside agency budgets, as well as about half the city departments. The second day, we'd finish up the other city departments and leave the third session for any follow-up items that you might want discussion on. We do have your budget public hearing set for June 5th at 7 p.m., so we are asking for those dates with your approval. We could start at 4 p.m. or 5 p.m., whichever might be best for you, but I wanted to see if those dates would work for you.
I'd recommend, if possible, especially on the first date where we have our outside agencies, to do that at 4 o'clock, so most of those are still in their work day, so they could come.
Okay. Would you like 4 p.m. on the 3rd and 5th as well?
I think that'll be consistent. Just keep it all the same.
Okay.
I move we approve that recommendation.
Second.
Mr. Gilly and Mr. Lance. Ms. Wright, you'll call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Scales Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. Ms. Wright, do we have any beer permits?
We do. We have one tonight that's an ownership change for a restaurant at 206 West Northfield Boulevard. This permit is complete, and we're ready to issue it upon your approval.
All right. You have the application in front of you.
Move for approval.
Second.
Mr. Gilly, Mr. Young. Ms. Wright, we'll call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Mrs. Scales Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. We'll move into payment of statements.
Move we pay the bills.
Second the motion.
Mr. Young, Mr. Gilly. Ms. Wright, you'll call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Scales Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. We'll move into board and commission appointments and have been working on streamlining the process a little bit, thanks to Ms. Machoto. And what I'm doing is recommending, this has come from Mr. Whitaker in Building and Codes, and what we'll do is give you a week's notice or a couple weeks' notice, but let you know who we're recommending for reappointment, and then that way you have time to review that, and if you have any concerns, you can always let us know before the next meeting. And also have gone through and we have finalized the council appointments to the boards and commissions, and we'll send that out this week. All right. We'll move to other business from staff or city council.
Just one item. Mayor, Chief Gaines would like to introduce our new Assistant Chief for Medical Operations, Assistant Chief Lawson.
Mayor and Council, it is my privilege to introduce our newest team member. She comes to us with 34 years in the fire service, with 22 years being in the EMS division. And she's held the rank of Assistant Chief of a Medical Service, District Chief Medical Service, and She recently retired from Nashville Fire Department as Deputy Chief of Community Service and Public Affairs. And I'm fortunate and excited that she chose to extend her career with this department, and I'll turn it over to her. Assistant Chief Kim Lawson.
Hi, thank you so much. I am having a wonderful time. I'm wrapping up my second week here at the Murfreesboro Fire and Rescue Department. I have had a wonderful, wonderful time getting to learn a lot more about your city. Looking forward to doing my best to enhance your medical services here in Murfreesboro. And very nice to meet you, and thank you for the opportunity to serve. Thank you.
We look forward to many good things to come from the fire department, fire and rescue department. You have a phenomenal staff to help you accomplish your goals.
Mm-hmm.
Any other business? One thing we'd like to bring up for the council to think about, and not to make a decision tonight, but had been talking with Mr. Lyons about, had several people ask for comments about opening, having a once a month opportunity for the public to come and speak at the council meeting. And I think what we have talked about and thought may be a good solution is once a month to have be here at 6:30, 30 minutes early, and have a 30-minute session where people can come and speak with the council. And so anyway, something to think about, and we'll talk about that in meetings to come. Any other business? Seeing none, we'll stand adjourned.